I should have gotten out of the relationship 25 years ago.
The emails just dropped, and they're absolutely wild. Kody Brown has confirmed what we all suspected. Women are actively sliding into his DMs trying to join his family, and the details he's spilling reveal a recruitment operation that's way more organized than anyone imagined. During his recent press blitz for Special Forces, Kody dropped a bombshell that has the entire polygamy-watching community buzzing. Multiple women have been reaching out with what he calls well-meaning religious advice, but let's be real about what's actually happening here. These aren't random fan messages. These are strategic moves from women who know exactly how the polygamous game is played. Listen to Kody's exact words, because they're absolutely chilling. "This woman emailed me, and she's telling me that I should get back in my faith or in our religion." He said this like it was perfectly normal. But here's the kicker. This wasn't just one woman. He admitted that both he and Robyn have been getting approached this way by multiple people about potentially coming into our family. The timing is suspicious as hell. Christine's memoir just exposed their financial disasters. Janelle's making legal moves, and suddenly, mysterious women start appearing with spiritual guidance that conveniently steers conversations toward family arrangements. That's not coincidence. That's coordination.
I got another one of those emails from some woman asking sort of like to get to know us for the purpose of joining the family.
What makes this whole situation even more disturbing is how Kody's been handling these communications. He's been forwarding them to Robyn like they're some kind of entertainment. "Hey, sweetheart, this woman emailed me," he says, treating organized recruitment attempts like they're funny memes to share over morning coffee. These women aren't asking about his business ventures or offering general spiritual support. They're targeting his religious status and relationship situation with laser precision. That's classic recruitment behavior dressed up in concern-trolling language. The most revealing detail, Kody admits these approaches feel realistic enough that he's actually considering them, despite the complications of fame. But the real bombshell about what these emails actually contain is even more shocking than his casual admission. The spiritual manipulation tactics being used in these emails are straight out of the polygamous playbook, and Kody's response reveals just how vulnerable he still is to this particular brand of religious pressure.
I don't want to pursue another woman because I don't want that headache, the questions, the struggles, the wonder about trust. I'm not in that space.
Let's break down what's actually happening here. These women aren't sending generic "hope you're well" messages. They're weaponizing religious language to create emotional openings. The woman Kody mentioned specifically told him he should repent and get back into their religion. That's not spiritual guidance. That's calculated psychological manipulation designed to trigger shame, nostalgia, and religious obligation all at once. Here's what makes this approach so insidious. It positions the sender as spiritually superior while simultaneously suggesting Kody has fallen from grace. It's a classic manipulation tactic that says, "I'm here to help save your soul," while actually saying, "I'm available to join your family." The religious framing makes it impossible to reject without seeming spiritually resistant. Kody's reaction is equally telling. He admits he felt like he's been there, done that, regarding repentance, which suggests these messages hit their intended target. Instead of immediately shutting down inappropriate contact from strangers, he's engaging with the spiritual content and sharing it with Robyn as discussion material. That's exactly the response these senders were hoping for. The genius of this approach is how it exploits Kody's documented spiritual crisis. He's publicly struggled with his faith since the family breakdown, and these women are offering him a path back to religious validation through familiar family structures. They're not selling polygamy directly. They're selling spiritual healing that just happens to involve adding wives. What's even more concerning is how these communications target both Kody and Robyn simultaneously. This isn't random outreach. Someone is coordinating a campaign that understands the family dynamics and knows that Robyn's buy-in is essential for any new arrangements. The fact that both of them are being approached suggests a level of strategic planning that goes way beyond individual women shooting their shot. But the most disturbing revelation about Robyn's actual response to these recruitment attempts shows just how trapped she's become in this situation. Robyn's reaction to these recruitment emails tells a story of complete powerlessness that's both heartbreaking and infuriating. Her silence isn't consent, it's surrender. When Kody describes sharing these emails with Robyn, he paints it as casual marital communication, but listen closely to what he's actually revealing. "Hey, sweetheart, this woman emailed me," he says, like he's discussing weekend plans. But Robyn's response? Kody claims she's just quietly listening to these discussions about other women potentially joining their marriage like it's inevitable weather patterns. The most chilling detail comes when Kody admits that Robyn told him, "I've already lost you to this. I'm not going to stop this from happening." That's not the voice of a woman who's genuinely supportive of polygamy. That's the voice of someone who's been emotionally beaten down to the point where she stopped fighting battles she knows she can't win. Think about what Robyn's actually saying here. She's acknowledging that Kody is already mentally and emotionally invested in the possibility of new wives. She's recognizing that her husband has checked out of their monogamous arrangement before she even got a vote. Her statement isn't permission. It's capitulation born from exhaustion. This is the same woman who supposedly won the polygamy wars, who ended up with the husband while everyone else got discarded. But winning in Kody's world apparently means getting to watch your husband shop for replacements while pretending you're fine with it. Some victory. What makes this even more disturbing is how Kody frames Robyn's resignation as understanding rather than what it actually is, evidence of an emotionally abusive dynamic, where she's learned that resistance is futile. He's not asking for her blessing, he's informing her of possibilities, and expecting her to manage her own emotional response. The timing of these conversations is particularly cruel. Just as Robyn might have thought she'd finally secured some stability after years of family chaos, here comes Kody sharing emails from potential sister wives like he's browsing a catalog. Her forced silence speaks volumes about the real power dynamics in their supposedly equal partnership. But this recruitment pattern isn't random, and the women making these approaches know exactly what they're doing based on decades of polygamous culture experience. Every woman who's ever navigated polygamous communities can spot what's happening here from miles away. This isn't random outreach. This is a systematic recruitment process that follows the exact same playbook used in fundamentalist circles for generations. The approach is textbook. Establish spiritual authority first, then create emotional intimacy through shared religious concerns. These women aren't starting with, "Hey, want another wife?" They're opening with, "I'm worried about your spiritual well-being," which immediately positions them as caring, spiritually mature, and emotionally invested in Kody's welfare. It's brilliant manipulation disguised as ministry. Here's how seasoned observers know this is coordinated: the consistency of approach across multiple contacts. Kody admits several women have reached out using similar frameworks, all focusing on his religious status and family arrangements. That's not coincidence. That's a tested strategy being deployed by people who understand exactly how to exploit spiritual vulnerability. The pattern gets even clearer when you consider the timing and targeting. These approaches intensified right as Kody became publicly available again, and they're specifically coming from women embedded in the culture of plural marriage. They're not random fans or casual spiritual advisors. They're women who know the system, understand the process, and recognize an opportunity when they see one. What makes this particularly insidious is how these women are framing their interest as concern for Kody's spiritual welfare rather than personal romantic interest. It allows them to maintain plausible deniability while testing his receptiveness. If he shuts down the conversation, they can claim they were just trying to help spiritually. If he engages, they've established the foundation for deeper connection. The fact that they're approaching both Kody and Robyn simultaneously reveals another level of sophistication. These aren't amateur moves. Someone understands that successful polygamous recruitment requires managing the existing wife's emotions and securing her cooperation, or at least her silence. They know Robyn's buy-in is essential, so they're working both angles. This recruitment pattern explains why Kody feels comfortable discussing these approaches so casually. In polygamous culture, this kind of spiritual courtship is considered normal and even honorable. But there's one major complication these recruiters didn't account for, and it's causing some serious problems with their strategy. The most chilling detail in Kody's entire confession is his casual mention that these women are embedded most likely in the culture of plural marriage. That's not random phrasing. That's confirmation of organized community involvement in recruiting new wives for his family. Let's unpack what embedded in the culture actually means. These aren't women who watched Sister Wives and got curious about polygamy. These are women who are already living within fundamentalist communities, who understand the rules and hierarchies, and who know exactly how plural marriage systems operate. They're not outsiders looking in. They're insiders making strategic moves. The coordination becomes even clearer when you consider how these approaches are happening simultaneously across multiple channels. Kody admits both he and Robyn are being contacted by different women using similar spiritual frameworks. That level of synchronized outreach doesn't happen organically. Someone is organizing this campaign, and they have deep connections within polygamous networks. Here's what seasoned observers recognize. This looks like community elders or spiritual leaders directing available women toward Kody as a potential placement. In fundamentalist circles, marriages aren't typically individual choices. They're community decisions made by religious authorities who control family arrangements. The fact that multiple women are suddenly reaching out suggests someone with influence is encouraging these connections. The religious angle makes perfect sense in this context. Spiritual leaders often use concern for someone's spiritual welfare as justification for arranging marriages that serve community interests. By framing these approaches as religious guidance rather than romantic pursuit, they maintain the appearance of spiritual authority while actually facilitating relationship negotiations. What makes this particularly concerning is how these community networks operate. Women in fundamentalist polygamous cultures often have limited autonomy over their marriage choices. If community leaders are directing women toward Kody, those women might be facing pressure to pursue connections they wouldn't necessarily choose independently. That raises serious questions about consent and coercion. The timing also suggests these communities are specifically targeting Kody during his vulnerable period. His public spiritual crisis and family breakdown make him an attractive prospect for communities looking to reclaim a high-profile member. They're not just recruiting wives for Kody, they're trying to recruit Kody back into their sphere of influence. But there's another layer to this recruitment strategy that reveals just how calculated these approaches really are, and it involves rewriting recent history in ways that should terrify anyone who cares about accountability. Kody's most manipulative move in this entire revelation is how he's reframing the polygamous years as mutual suffering that he and Robyn endured together. This isn't just revisionist history, it's emotional manipulation designed to justify considering new wives while erasing the real victims of his choices. Listen carefully to how he describes their past. Rob and I kind of look at it as like, well, we suffered at the end of this experience. It'd be painful to think about it again. Notice what's missing from this narrative? Any acknowledgement that Christine, Janelle, and Mary were the ones who actually suffered, while Robyn got prioritized, protected, and pampered throughout the entire polygamous arrangement. This "we suffered together" framing serves multiple purposes, and none of them are honest. First, it positions Kody and Robyn as trauma-bonded partners who survived hardship as a team. Second, it suggests that polygamy caused them pain rather than acknowledging that their favoritism and manipulation caused everyone else pain. Third, it creates a foundation for discussing new wives as something they might overcome together rather than something that would fundamentally threaten Robyn's security. The timing of this narrative shift is particularly calculated. Just as Christine's memoir exposes the financial chaos and emotional abuse of the polygamous years, Kody is spinning a counter-narrative where he and Robyn were fellow victims rather than the architects of everyone else's misery. It's classic manipulation. Rewrite the story so you're the injured party rather than the person who caused the injuries. What makes this even more insidious is how it primes Robyn to accept new wives as something that could heal their shared trauma rather than recreate it. If they suffered through polygamy before, maybe they could handle it better this time with their stronger bond and better understanding. It's a setup for emotional blackmail disguised as relationship growth. The reality is that Robyn didn't suffer during the polygamous years. She thrived while everyone else struggled. She got the new house, the wedding dress shopping trips, the honeymoon attention, and the majority of Kody's time and emotional energy. Her suffering came only when the other wives finally had enough and left, forcing her to become Kody's sole focus instead of his favorite. But this suffering narrative isn't just about manipulating Robyn's emotions. It's also about protecting Kody from the financial consequences of his past choices. And that's where things get really interesting from a practical standpoint. The money trail behind these recruitment attempts reveals calculations that would make any financial advisor break out in a cold sweat. New wives aren't just emotional complications for Kody and Robyn. They're potential financial disasters that could destroy what little stability they've managed to rebuild. Let's start with the obvious. Kody is already stretched thin, financially supporting his existing children across multiple households. Child support obligations don't disappear just because relationships end, and adding new wives with potential new children would multiply those obligations exponentially. The man who couldn't afford to keep Coyote Pass is somehow considering arrangements that would require even more resources. But here's where it gets really interesting from a legal standpoint. Any new spiritual wives would have zero legal protections or financial guarantees. Unlike his legal marriage to Robyn, spiritual marriages offer no divorce settlements, no spousal support rights, and no claim to shared assets. That means new wives would be completely dependent on Kody's continued goodwill and financial success, with no legal recourse if things go south. The TLC contract situation adds another layer of complexity. Sister Wives has been renewed for season 20, but how long can a show about failed polygamy sustain viewer interest? New wives might temporarily boost ratings, but they'd also demand compensation for appearing on camera. Suddenly, Kody's income would need to support more people, while potentially becoming less reliable as the show's novelty wears off. From Robyn's perspective, new wives represent a direct threat to her financial security. She's the legal wife, which means she has claim to half of any marital assets accumulated since their wedding. But if Kody starts redirecting resources toward new spiritual wives and their children, her actual access to those assets becomes meaningless. Legal rights don't help if there's nothing left to claim. The community recruitment angle makes the financial picture even murkier. If fundamentalist leaders are encouraging these approaches, they might expect Kody to provide financial support not just to new wives but to their extended families and communities. That's how polygamous economics often work. Successful men become financial resources for entire religious networks. Here's the calculation that should terrify Robyn. New wives would likely expect the same level of financial support that she received during the polygamous years. New houses, new cars, new everything. But unlike the sister wives era when TLC money was flowing, current resources are limited. Something would have to give, and historically, it's never been Kody's comfort that gets sacrificed. But the financial implications pale in comparison to the legal vulnerabilities these recruitment attempts could create, and that's where things get truly dangerous for everyone involved. The legal ramifications of these recruitment attempts could blow up everything Kody and Robyn have rebuilt, and they're walking straight into a minefield without even realizing the dangers they're facing. Let's start with the custody implications. Kody is still fighting for access to his children with Janelle, and any evidence of him actively pursuing new polygamous relationships could severely damage his case. Family courts don't look favorably on parents who prioritize acquiring new partners over maintaining relationships with existing children. These recruitment discussions could be used as evidence that Kody's focus is on expanding his family rather than repairing the damage he's already caused. The polygamy angle creates even bigger legal problems. While polygamy isn't actively prosecuted in most jurisdictions anymore, it's still technically illegal. Kody's public discussions about considering new spiritual wives could be interpreted as intent to commit bigamy. That's not just a personal legal risk, it's a potential problem for TLC, which has built an entire franchise around a family structure that technically violates federal law. Here's where things get really dangerous. If these recruitment attempts involve women from fundamentalist communities, there could be interstate commerce issues if any financial arrangements cross state lines. Moving women across state boundaries for marriage arrangements, even spiritual ones, can trigger federal jurisdiction under trafficking statutes. Kody might think he's just considering personal relationships, but prosecutors could view organized recruitment very differently. The documentation trail is already problematic. Kody has publicly admitted to receiving multiple communications from women about joining his family. He's described sharing these communications with Robyn and discussing them as realistic possibilities. If law enforcement ever decides to investigate polygamous recruitment networks, these statements could be used as evidence of conspiracy to commit bigamy. From Robyn's legal perspective, the vulnerabilities are just as serious. If she's actively participating in discussions about bringing new wives into their family, she could be viewed as an accessory to any illegal polygamous arrangements. Her legal marriage to Kody wouldn't protect her from criminal liability if prosecutors decide to pursue charges. The civil implications are equally concerning. If new wives join the family and later experience abuse or exploitation, they could file lawsuits against both Kody and Robyn for damages. The public record of these recruitment discussions would make it harder to claim ignorance about the risks involved in polygamous arrangements. But the most immediate legal threat isn't criminal prosecution. It's what these recruitment attempts signal about Kody's current mental state and decision-making capacity, and that should have everyone who cares about his children's welfare extremely concerned. Here's what everyone needs to understand about Kody's casual discussion of new wives. This isn't just idle speculation or harmless curiosity. This is a man in crisis making increasingly desperate decisions that could destroy the last stable relationships in his orbit. The most alarming aspect isn't even the recruitment attempts themselves. It's Kody's complete inability to recognize how devastating these discussions are to Robyn's sense of security. He's treating her forced acceptance as marital harmony when it's actually evidence of emotional breakdown. A woman who says, "I've already lost you to this," isn't giving permission. She's expressing defeat. The timing reveals everything about Kody's motivations. Just as Christine's memoir exposes his failures as a husband and father, just as public opinion turns decisively against him, suddenly he's open to discussing new wives who might offer fresh validation and admiration. This isn't about spiritual calling or religious restoration. This is about ego repair at everyone else's expense. The community involvement makes this situation exponentially more dangerous. If fundamentalist leaders are actively recruiting women for Kody's family, they're not doing it out of concern for his spiritual welfare. They're doing it because they want access to his platform, his resources, and his public influence. Kody would become a tool for promoting polygamous culture to mainstream audiences, and any new wives would become unwilling participants in that agenda. For Robyn, the threat assessment is crystal clear. She's married to a man who publicly discusses replacing her while expecting her to smile and support his choices. She's raising children in a household where their father treats family relationships as interchangeable entertainment options. She's financially dependent on someone who demonstrates zero loyalty when better opportunities arise. The children caught in this chaos face the worst risks of all. They're watching their father prioritize hypothetical relationships over existing family bonds. They're learning that love is conditional and security is temporary. They're being raised by parents who model dysfunction as normal family dynamics. What makes this entire situation most terrifying is Kody's apparent belief that fame gives him unlimited options without consequences. He's discussing recruitment attempts like they're business opportunities rather than life-altering decisions that would impact everyone in his orbit. The man who destroyed 4 marriages is somehow confident he could manage new ones better this time. The sister wives community isn't buying Kody's redemption narrative, and these recruitment revelations prove why. A man who casually discusses acquiring new wives while his current wife sits in silence isn't someone who's learned from past mistakes. He's someone who's planning to repeat them with different players. So here we stand, watching Kody Brown treat human relationships like a reality show casting call, while expecting everyone to applaud his spiritual journey. The National Sisterhood sees exactly what's happening here, and something tells me the next round of consequences will be even more devastating than the last. Do you think these recruitment attempts will push Robyn to finally take control of her own narrative? Which legal vulnerability has you most concerned for the children still caught in Kody's orbit? Tap like, hit subscribe, keep notifications on, and let me know your thoughts. A fresh video is already queued up, and something tells me the next round of Brown family revelations will be even juicier than the last.